I'd like to share with you a few thoughts on the readings from the 26th Sunday of Ordinary Time. The first reading is taken from Ezekiel, that great and powerful prophet. And he throws this challenge out. Which ways are good and which are evil? The human ways or the divine? And he said, what if there's a person that's been good all of their life, but then turns to evil? Should God ignore the evil because of the previous good? No. And vice versa. What if a person has been evil all of their life, has a change of heart, and begins to walk a godly path? Will God hold all of that previous evil against them? Again, the answer is no. Now, there are many theologians that talk about a fundamental option in life which is so important. To be oriented towards God is a graced way of life. Some of these theologians, however, make it sound as if breaking that relationship with God is almost impossible. It's not. A good person can commit a deadly sin at any moment in their lives. A husband can be very loving towards his wife and children, and in one act of adultery disrupt not only his relationship with his family, but with God also. A person can be very peaceful through most of their life, kind and generous. Something happens to them and they become filled with rage and anger, and they plot the murder of another person. And they carry it out. That makes them a murderer. It not only kills another human being, but it slays their relationship with God. But you don't have to be an adulterer or murderer to disrupt your relationship with God. There are many serious ways we could go off the rail in our spiritual life and in our human life. And one of the ways I think St. Paul is struggling with in his letter to the Philippians. Now, St. Paul was not a man to beg and plead, but in this second chapter of Philippians, he begs and pleads with that community to live in harmony with each person, thinking of the other person as better than themselves. He said, if you love me at all, you'll strive to do this. And then he goes on and gives the great Carmen Christi, a hymn to Christ. Many believe it's one of the earliest liturgical hymns that we could find in Scripture. And he says, Jesus did not deem equality with God something to be grasped at, but he took on the human estate and embraced even death on the cross. And because of that, he has been exalted. And then the chapter goes on with Paul pleading again, please live in harmony. If you live in harmony and don't grumble and backbite amongst yourselves, then and only then will you find yourself leading a truly godly life. And this is reiterated in chapter 4 of Philippians, where he says to two women, Euodia and Syntyche, please live in harmony. And he asked the community to intercede for them because they're at each other's throats. He said, these women have helped me greatly in my ministry. Their names are written in the book of life. Do all that you can to reconcile them. Why? Because not only murder and adultery can disrupt a person's relationship with God, but vindictiveness, an unforgiving spirit, perhaps gossip and calumny back and forth between the two women, put both of them in a dangerous spiritual place and disrupts not only their lives, but the lives of the whole community. How many times that happens in every single parish, every single religious community around the world. Good people do bad things to one another, and it goes through the whole church as a weakening ripple. And St. Paul would be the first to beg us to stop doing that. One of the ancient writers said that pagans, when they saw the Christians, they would marvel and say, "See how they love one another." But how many times today pagans and non-believers say, "See how these Christians really hate and despise and mock one another." Mea culpa. May the Lord have mercy on us. Now, in today's gospel reading, Jesus gives a very, very powerful challenge to the religious leaders of his time, the Pharisees. He said, when John the Baptist came out of the desert, leading in a very austere life, you didn't accept him. You didn't follow him. You said he didn't go to the right schools, even though he was of the priestly class. You said he hardly ever shows up at temple. We don't know what he's talking about. But the prostitutes, the sinners, the tax collectors, who are hungering for God, found in that rejected prophet godly hope, where they could find a new way of life, where God would forget the evil of their past, as Ezekiel said, and remember the goodness of their presence. He said, now I come with a different spirit, and you reject me as well. You say he eats with sinners. He doesn't fast. He goes to dinner with people who are outside the law, etc., etc. And you have hardened your heart against the salvation that could be found in me. Now this strikes at the heart not only of ancient religion, but of our circumstances today. It's possible that some of us could say 20 decades of the Rosary every day and go to daily Mass, and still carry great resentment in our hearts for someone else in the believing community. To be angry at this one or that one. To gossip endlessly about the weakness or the apparent weakness of other human beings. And miss the whole point of the gospel of love. We come to the sacrifice on the altar and we remember the humility and the love of Christ. When we pick up the Rosary, we meditate on all of the decades of the mysteries that the Church has given us, and we try to follow a path of obedience and humble service that Mary followed in this life. And if that happens to us, then whatever evil we've done in the past, placed under the sacraments, will be forgotten and forgiven by God, and we will truly live a prophetic, godly, and Catholic life.